If you looked at that MHRA report for the public, you will see that they didn't do any fertility studies. Pages 16 to 21 are of particular interest for people to look at if they're interested. They did no fertility studies, and they didn't even do fertility studies in animals. They were exempt. The studies and trials were exempt, which is most peculiar. They didn't do any studies in pregnant women, and yet it was pushed on pregnant women. And we know from the Pfizer studies themselves that they said to the women in the studies, you must not get pregnant, you must use contraception, you mustn't get pregnant under any circumstances. And human nature being what it is, 25 women did get pregnant. And out of the 25 pregnancies, there were 15 miscarriages, which means that's 58% miscarriage rate for women who were vaccinated and became pregnant. And out of the 9 babies that were born, 5 had congenital abnormalities. So this is a complete disaster, absolute disaster. And we've seen miscarriage and stillborn baby rates go up enormously, actually. In Scotland, the normal rate is 2 in 1,000, and it's gone up to 4.9 in 1,000, which is the highest level for over 10 years.
Is this, I mean, those are just absolutely shocking numbers.
Because I hold in my hands an internal document from Pfizer Laboratories, which was given to us by a very special person who we have contact with, called Reverse Engineering the Source Code of the BioNTech Pfizer SARS-CoV-2 vaccine. And this is very, very critical because it outlines the chemical and the biological processes which were very, very carefully manipulated in order to be able to produce an mRNA that also contained a very, very dangerous toxin to the human body. Do you know what that toxin is? That toxin is called graphene oxide. And every single one of these vaccines in a 30-milligram shot contains 15 billion nanoparticles or lipid carrier particles within the mRNA sequence. 15 billion nanoparticles. And let me tell you how graphene oxide works when it gets into the body. Because when the spike protein then binds itself to our blood cells and so on, graphene oxide then starts to build a structure. And this is why we have people with blood clots and we have people with heart failure, sudden heart failure and so on. The patent databases that we have accessed proves that COVID-19 and COVID-19 vaccines are in fact a bioweapon. And how do we support that? Because we have a copy of the mysteriously deleted Wuhan databases that tell us everything. Thank you very much.
We're going to take a wild virus and we're going to make it more pathogenic, more virulent, more deadly, and then we're going to develop a vaccine for that. And that's classic gain-of-function research. Why are they doing that? You know, what is the rationale for them doing that? The only real rationale, if you think about it, is to develop bioweapons and then develop a defense to those bioweapons. So that's what they were doing. And Anthony Fauci was given a 68% raise by the military because of these new military responsibilities. He continued to do that to 2014. And that year, 3 of the bugs escaped. In high-profile escapes from 3 different labs in the United States, really deadly bugs escaped or were found in unsafe circumstances. And 300 scientists sent a letter to President Obama asking him to shut down Anthony Fauci's research on gain-of-function, saying that it was highly likely that he would start a global pandemic with this kind of very dangerous research. And President Obama issued a moratorium and shut down 18 of the worst projects by Anthony Fauci, or ordered them shut. In the end, he really didn't shut them. He instead moved the research offshore, where he would be out of the oversight of these troublesome scientists, the 300 scientists, a group that called itself the Cambridge Working Group, and of White House officials. And the major lab offshore that they moved this research, there were other ones too, they moved research to Ukraine, to the former Soviet state of Georgia. But some of the worst research they moved to a Chinese lab that was run by the Chinese military, the Wuhan lab in Wuhan, the Wuhan Institute of Virology in Wuhan, China.
Kaiser Family Foundation study says 1/3 of Americans say the vaccines have caused thousands of people to lose their lives. Thousands of people. So 1/3 of America knows. Think about this. Zogby survey last summer about this time. 15% of people who took the shots have some medical problem. They're seeing doctors. They've got blood clots. They've got neuropathy.
Just 15?
15%. Yeah, 15. So here's the point. 25% of us didn't take it for a reason. The vaccine's kind of an important voter issue for us and health freedom. Another 15% are screwed by them. That's 40. Now you got maybe an overlapping 30 who says this calling. Whoever is running for president better figure this out pretty quick, because only 60% of people vote. That's it. That's all you're going to get. 60%, even in the biggest election. So out of the 60%, we're talking 40 plus. This is a hot issue. Do you know many candidates can't even articulate where they stand on this? They're playing cat and mouse. Did you see that Tucker Carlson clip with Tucker and one of the candidates? Tucker says, well, so how many vaccine shots have you taken? And the guy leans into the microphone. Well, how many have you taken, Tucker? He goes, none. And everybody cheers. I mean, come on. Let's just be honest about it. Did Jamie Foxx take the shots or not?
We were, in the spring of 2021, the busiest we've ever been as an ER. It was complete chaos, and that's being said, COVID had been going on for a year then. It was not COVID that was making people sick. We had gone a year with COVID and a ER that remained completely empty until the vaccines started coming out. And then all of a sudden, everybody was sick. Everybody. We almost immediately saw an increase, tremendous increase in the level, a number of stroke patients. We saw the number of patients with blood clots in their body, in their lungs, in their legs, people having unexplained heart palpitations, numbness, paralysis. I think the world needs to know what truly happened in these last 3 years and what medical professionals have been seeing all along.
But Tony Fauci can still say, what I'm doing is for medical purposes, we're developing these things, and then we're going to develop defenses against them. He funded one study that put the lie to all of that. He funded Ralph Barrett to develop a technique called seamless ligation. And that is a technique for hiding the engineering project. So you could... Normally, when you do that kind of engineering, you can see it and you can say that bug was created in a lab. He developed a way of hiding all traces that it was developed. And he taught that to the Chinese scientists, to Xing Ji. And that, there is no public health. It is the opposite of what you would do if you were interested in public health. It's the opposite. If you're interested in public health, you would make sure that any kind of tampering you did like that had red flags all over it that says, we made this thing. To teach people how to hide that only has a nefarious purpose.
Strong immune systems are what react to spike being inappropriately in their cells. And if your cells, your myocardial cells, are filled up with 40 trillion, and that's the number, by the way, 40 trillion mRNAs are in every shot you take. Here's the problem with spike protein. When spike protein goes into your body, you got 30,000 billion cells in your body, you got 40,000 billion mRNAs, enough to go into every cell of your body. So they're all going in and they're all creating a flag. They are all creating the fact that your body recognizes your heart is no longer your heart. It's a transplanted heart. Your kidney is no longer your kidney. It's a transplanted kidney, the body thinks, and that's why the body goes after it.
When you have something bind to a receptor up at the surface level, it's going to send massive numbers of biochemical signals all over the place.
And that's why the attacks are so varied. That's why one person could be suffering massively from a hepatitic or a kidney ailment, and another person will have a dissection in the aorta because the aorta is being inflamed by the attack. Or the heart. The typical one is myocarditis in children, young adolescents, male and female, getting pain and troponin elevations and all the features of myocarditis, and it's because your immune system, it's not the spike itself that's harming you, it's your immune system going after the spike that has changed the genetic image of your heart, and your body thinks it's not your heart, and that's why it attacks the heck out of it.
And to me, the mRNA technology was a failed technology. Why were they using the spike as the thing they were going to inject you with?
Essentially, what we have been forced to fight here with COVID-19, it's a subtle, purposeful, immunologic poison that's been put into our bodies and for which there was a plan.
It just didn't make any sense.
This is basic immunologic science. The makers of this immunotoxic vaccine knew this. They knew this for a purpose. You can't make this something this damaging to humanity without doing it on purpose.
And lastly, what is Pfizer's next moonshot and how do you expect to get there?
It is, first of all, you never know because you may think that you will be successful in one direction and you can fail there and be successful in another. But where we put all our efforts, because again, based on the discussion we have for strategy, we think we have the capabilities to make a difference, and there is a huge need from the world to see a difference, is cancer. It's all about oncology. Disproportionately we are investing capital over there, and disproportionately we are organizing the whole organization to make sure that this area is well equipped to be successful. Cancer. That's the new moonshot.
What about vaccine injury, the ones that actually took the shots? What did you see there?
Massive. I didn't know it was possible for a human to die so horrifically and so quickly before they rolled out the mRNA injections. It was insane. I've never seen anything like that. The worst of them were the ones, they called it sepsis, but it was like instant multi-organ failure. Like within hours, patients would die of liver, lung, kidney, all at once failure, respiratory failure. It was like some of the records, the emergency crew that found them, it's like their body tried to reject everything, and some of these cases, like their family would be there 30 minutes before, and then within an hour they're dead. And then there were patients coming in with seizures like I've never seen before. We couldn't control some of them. Days patients would be seizing, and no medications would stop it, and eventually they kind of had to be put down. They called it encephalitis or encephalopathy, and then later on they even the coding information organization AHIMA admitted COVID-19 associated encephalitis. There were blood clots, strokes. The clots were insane. Never seen clots like that before. Even the interventional radiologists that were going in with, they have angiopathies and, different scopes where they can do like heart interventions and put stents in like a carotid artery if you have a stroke going to your brain. Normally it's rare to have more than one stent go in, and they were documenting, multiple locations all at once. They had heart attack cases that were like that, where they needed massive amounts of stents that they never needed before. There were people in their 20s that had been hiking that were totally healthy, had been running marathons, that suddenly needed a leg amputated because they had a massive blood clot going from their hip all the way down to their leg.
Yes, I received my vaccine injury from my third Pfizer shot, which was my booster shot on the 8th of January 2022. I started with pericarditis, but the inflammation was much further spread than just in my heart. It went through to my lungs and further to other parts of my body, including my brain. Over a period of about 5 months, I was quite acutely unwell. Spent multiple trips into hospital. Spent about six weeks in hospital overall, trying to recover from just that initial acute injury. But since then I am now chronically ill and disabled from the vaccine. I am no longer able to work or drive or do many things at all. Really, it affects my whole body, my capacity to think and speak, my ability to walk, my regulatory system is completely disorganised. So it has had a major catastrophic impact on myself and my family.
Because the spike protein, it was designed in such a way that our cells can't degrade this foreign protein down like they normally can with other proteins. It's very hard to get out of the body, for one, and for two, we don't know how long your body's going to make it. So by fasting, that may help to get rid of the spike. And then there's some other naturopathic and ways and supplements to take that can help your body get rid of the spike. But it's a problem because there's this shedding too, and we're constantly around other people that are vaccinated, and we're all getting exposed to spike every day. I think we all probably need to be on something to get rid of.
None of the children that didn't take the shots have any health problems, any heart problems. Everyone that got sick or had blood clots or heart swelling, myocarditis, everyone that got sick, everyone that died took the shots. This is biological warfare, gain of function. Here's where they made it. Here's where they did it. Chapel Hill, University of Texas, Rice University was involved, Houston. And we have them. And then they even in the fine print on the FDA website said, yeah, this is going to cause all this. They studied 1.7 million children in the UK that took the shots and didn't take the shots and found no children having heart problems or myocarditis that didn't take the shots and massive problems in kids that did take the shots. Oxford, all the big universities, medical teams on it. 6 universities in the UK. Okay? So think about how, and this is in the news, they're blocking this on Facebook and Google. You try to search this on Google, you can't even find it. They don't want you to know what they're doing. They got buses and billboards saying, oh, it's normal, kids having heart attacks and blood clots. Bullshit. Bullshit.
You are a former vice president of Pfizer. Could you just tell us very briefly about your position there?
So I was, until 2011, for many years, I was responsible for worldwide research and early development in their field of respiratory and allergy new medicines. That was it. 200 people indirectly across a couple of sites.
So that gave you a real insight into what was happening in early 2020.
There's not very many corners of this industry I've not had some knowledge of. And when I started noticing former colleagues of mine, including Sir Patrick Vallance, saying things on the television I knew weren't true and that I knew he knew weren't true, that's when the penny dropped for me, probably February 2020. I remember saying to my wife, this is not what they're saying it is, something's going on. And then when I saw not only my country locking down, but dozens of countries locking down at the same time, I would say to your listeners, that was proof, and it's still proof, of a supranational operation. There's no way it could have happened at the local level, at the country level. Therefore, it must have occurred at the level above. Whether it was the WHO or the World Economic Forum or other, I don't know. But I'm convinced that action alone absolutely proves unequivocally that we didn't just get some virus drifting in and then, oh, we all panicked. They all did the same stupid, ineffective, known not to work things at the same time, none of which were in their country's pandemic preparedness plans, because I've read them all, right? So when I accuse these people of lying, I do it confident they're not going to sue me, because I would say, come on, sue me. I'd love to have discovery in courts. You will lose big time. And so they won't sue me. What they do is smear me and censor me, and I don't care anymore. Because we're facing something much worse than an alleged virus. At the very least, the things people have been injected with, the injuries to people from these so-called vaccines, I'm afraid, I wish I could tell you that it was accidental, but it wasn't accidental. I've spent 32 years in rational drug design. I know, and I knew, and wrote it, before any of them had emergency use authorization, that they were dangerous. And I'm afraid I'm convinced and would say, with my hand on the Bible in front of a court, a judge, that these injections have been made to injure people, to maim and kill deliberately.
Nobody's talking about the stem cells that the newborn babies are born without. Nobody's talking about the fact that there are now death doulas to deliver dead babies. Like, that wasn't even a thing before. But I've got a friend that's a midwife who tells me that they are now creating a new field, which are midwives that only deliver dead babies. They do nothing else. They didn't need that before. COVID was an absolute nightmare in terms of obstetrics, gynecology, labor and delivery. A lot of midwives that got done and because they didn't get vaccinated, they don't even want to go back now that they can go back, because they don't want to have their good reputations of 100% of, normal births being dealing with what's being dealt with today in terms of the birth problems that are happening because of the actual vaccine itself. Look, if it causes problems and blood clots in our circulation, what do you think it's going to do to a placenta that is pretty much all blood vessel? That's all it is. It's like a big blood vessel sandwich is what it is.
I'll tell you something else that's going to get you a lot of hits. I am taking a, what do they call it? Like a regular dose, whatever. They're trying to build up of ivermectin. Ivermectin was a boogeyman early on in COVID.
You couldn't talk about it.
That was wrong. We were given bad information about ivermectin. The real question is why? Everyone's going to say Joe Rogan was right. No, Joe Rogan was saying, yeah, he was right. But that's not what matters. What matters is the entire clinical community knew that ivermectin couldn't hurt you. They knew it, Patrick. I know they knew it. How do I know? Because now I'm doing nothing but talking to these clinicians who at the time were overwhelmed by COVID, and they weren't saying anything. Not that they were hiding anything, but it's cheap, it's not owned by anybody, and it's used as an antimicrobial, antiviral in all of these different ways, and has been for a long time.
For malaria for over almost 20 years.
Yeah. So, and my doctor, who is now my doctor, was using it during COVID on her family and on patients, and it was working for them. So they were wrong to play scared on that. Didn't know that at the time. Know it now. Admit it now. Reporting on it now.
So Artemisia annua is a Chinese wormwood.
Okay.
And this herb has been used for literally thousands of years to treat fevers. So what we might call infection. And for the first time in history of the Nobel Prize was awarded, half of it, for this herb. First time in history, Nobel Prize was awarded for research on an herb to Dr. Tu in China. For her work, it's like a Lifetime Achievement Award, Nobel, 40 years of research on this herb treating malaria. And that's a red blood cell parasite, microscopic parasite. And this is the best treatment on the planet for malaria. There's nothing better. There's no drug combination. There's no natural, there's nothing that is as good as this herb. And they've compared it. They've taken patients with drug-resistant malaria. They put them on this herb for 5 days and they're fine. So it's a remarkable herb. That's why you always try to find the whole herb, not just isolated chemicals from the herb. That's a common mistake in herbal medicine, is just to find isolated chemicals. So anyway, this herb got on everybody's map in 2015. And it was, by the way, the same year the other half of the Nobel Prize was awarded to for ivermectin. So
Really?
it's kind of amazing. Wow. 2 anti-parasitic agents, one pharmaceutical but soil microbe derived, and the other herbal, both treating parasites. The parasite treatments shared the Nobel Prize in 2015, and these are both 2 agents that are extraordinarily effective at treating COVID. And as you've emphasized and shared with the world, early treatment is the best. So this herb, like ivermectin, like hydroxychloroquine, was suppressed. And by the way, they're all was suppressed in order to get the EUAs and such approval for the experimental injections. So this herb does several things. In Chinese medicine, it helps to what we call clear heat or treat infection, but also can stop bleeding, improve vision, things like that. But in Western medicine, we know it's a superb anti-parasitic herb, but also the current research, which has really exploded in the COVID era, is this is a very effective antiviral. And the research is very clear that this helps to block viral entry, often through the ACE2 receptor of SARS-CoV-2, the laboratory bioweapon, into the cell. So it tends to inhibit viral entry into the cell. And when it's in the cell, it tends to inhibit viral replication.
Yesterday, the chief attorney for FDA admitted that there was no reason. He admitted because he lost the case in court against a doctor, but there was no reason to discourage people from taking ivermectin. Ivermectin was a very, very devastating cure for COVID. It literally obliterated COVID. And by depriving people of ivermectin, many people, millions of people around the globe died, and they didn't need to. There were cures for COVID from day one, and very effective cures. Right. But they didn't want that. They wanted the vaccine only. And there was a rule. There's a rule, a little-known federal rule that they were all aware of, which said that you cannot issue an emergency use authorization for a vaccine if there is an existing remedy that has already been approved for any use. So if they admitted that hydroxychloroquine or famotidine or ivermectin or any of the 25 existing therapeutic drugs that were very effective against COVID, if they admitted that any of them were effective, the whole vaccine project would have fallen apart. They couldn't have done it. And so they decided that they were going to pretend that there was no cure except for the vaccine.